Hello everyone, and welcome to another Dark Souls boss ASMR video. This one is going to be on the remaster of Dark Souls. So, as with all of my other videos on the Souls series, this is going to be a compilation of the footage of my first victory over each boss in my playthrough. So, this is not a perfect strategy guide. I will be talking about some strategies and some general lore and ideas about each of the bosses, but if you're looking for like some kind of, elite combo thing to defeat each boss in like 30 seconds or less, you might want to look elsewhere. Unless, of course, you're looking for a strategy for Pinwheel, because I will be able to help you out with that. For those of you who, are new to this video, that's basically the general idea. I'm going to show you the footage of each boss. I'm going to narrate over it with this sort of whisper commentary. And I'd also like to give a special shout out to PC Gamer. They featured my Dark Souls 3 video in an article of theirs. That was pretty cool to have that happen. And I'm grateful for all the new viewers that have sort of stumbled on because of that. So hopefully this video is timed appropriately. There was, of course, the unfortunate side effect of, a lot more hate comments to do with that. So that's a little unfortunate, but that's okay. I do have a message, though, for anyone who's stumbled on the video just looking to hate, or if you don't understand what ASMR is. So, if you listen very carefully, I just got a few things I'd like to explain. So, it's not really that much noticeable, unfortunately. So, that's kind of sad. It would have been nice if we had, like, Dark Souls 1. But, like, with the graphic quality of, like, Dark Souls 3. So, that's a little too bad. But, at the same time, I do, like that this is on PS4. Because that's kind of my only way to record videos. I don't have any kind of fancy tech, so I can't really do anything on a PS3. So that's basically, my main thing. I'm like, hey, if I can record this on PS4, then that's good for me. That's all that really matters to me. But in terms of the game itself, obviously I'd played this before on the PS3. And it's hard to tell what my favorite game in the series is, but Dark Souls bonfire scarcity and the way the healing works in the game. Like, you can have a lot of Estus if you kindle bonfires and stuff like that, but in most of the cases, a lot of the bosses have really long runs to them, so it really does deplete your Estus fast. And this was something that sort of changed in the later games. They made it so that you'd usually be lucky and you'd have a bonfire like right at the start of every boss's room, so you wouldn't really have any kind of a run to it or anything like that. So I think that definitely makes this one the toughest in the series. Although, going back to it, it did feel a little easier after having all my experience with the other games in the series. So, that's something to be said. I'd also never played the DLC originally, but this remaster comes with it already on the disc, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, the bosses in the DLC are tough, as is usually the case, but not all of them felt as tough as I thought they could have been. But that's probably due to my more exposure with the series and all that stuff. So, that's the main thing I have to say. I do also like that since this game's been remastered, there's a lot more people playing it, so now there's a greater online community that's active. Granted, when it comes to the PvP, I know there's a lot of hackers and stuff like that, or twinkers or cheesers or things like that, but I really just like the online bit for co-oping. I'm a Sun bro, that's my style. So, yeah, I like that I can actually get summoned to help someone within like 30 seconds of placing down a summon sign. Rather than I remember in the original, there's sometimes where I would just sit there for like 20 minutes. I'd just put the game down and go do something else, and I still wouldn't have been summoned. So, the fact that more people are playing it is pretty good. I'm trying to think if I have anything else to say in terms of a general review for the game. Not really much that I can think of. I'm sure I'll have individual little details to say about each boss when we get to them after I've finished setting up my character. Last thing, I always do this, I give a special shout out to all the channels that have helped me in creating the videos just with their content that they've made. It's helped me get through the series. So that's channels like Fati, Democracy, Over the Gun, Dave Control, y'all know who you are, Fighting Cowboy. Yeah, they make good videos and stuff, so if you somehow haven't seen them, go check them out. Anyway, just gonna fast forward through the rest of this and finish up my beautiful character. So we start off with the intro cinematic, and this basically just sort of tells us the layout of the world, and the sort of beginning of the cycle of the Age of Fire. So before there was fire, there was nothing, but there was still something. There was no conflict between light and dark, it was just neutral. And so, I guess the idea is that when there was fire, since there's light, there's also dark, heat and cold, and life and death. And this sort of general cyclical nature of a battle between the two forces, not necessarily good and evil per se. At least that's my understanding of it. And so, the first humans, I guess, were then born out of the dark. And then there were the Soul Lords, or something like that. The game could be a little hard to follow. But basically, the main gist of the intro is that these are all the guys who are going to severely mess you up when you try and fight them. And it was something they sort of brought back for the intro to Dark Souls 3 when they showed you all the Lords of Cinder. So, that's the general thing, was look at all these cool guys, And just imagine how many times you're probably going to die to them when you have to kill them. And don't forget about the furtive pygmy, because it might sort of kind of be possibly a little bit maybe relevant in the DLC for Dark Souls 3. And, I mean, I am making jokes, but I've always really loved this intro, the way it sets the stage of the world, and, maybe because it's also like knights and stuff like that, but this sort of epic intro and the music gives me kind of like a Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring prologue sort of vibe, which is cool. I mean, you know, if you're gonna be like Lord of the Rings, that's totally okay, because Lord of the Rings is awesome. But that's the general thing, is that these, the lords, they took over, they killed all the dragons, except for the ones that they didn't kill, which we'll soon find out. And they spared Seath because he told them about if you could break off their scales, that they would lose their immortality. Or something like that. And so, in the Age of Fire, there was prosperity and humanity thrived. But since this is a cyclical world, the fire is soon fading. And we, as the chosen undead, have the choice to either link the fire, thus prolonging the age for a bit, or just bringing on the dark and getting it all on. But no matter what you do, the cycle will still continue again, because there's sequels and stuff. Yeah, that's the basic idea. So, that's the intro, and there's the dark sign that we are branded with, and this is basically the reason why you never die. Every time you do, you're just sort of reborn and slowly lose a bit of sanity, until eventually you sort of shrivel away and you go hollow, like all these lovely fellows over here. And I've always liked the hollowing idea, because to me it's kind of like a metaphor for the player. Like, if you die too many times, you go insane, you lose your mind, which is what probably happened to a lot of people when they kept on dying in this game and decided to rage quit. But not me. I am here to persevere, and I will go on to defeat all the bosses. But so, we start in the Undead Asylum, and the idea of this is that since the Hollows never die, they're just locked away to hollow out and remain here for the end of days. And our character here, the Chosen Undead, is one of these hollows. So, here we are with the beef jerky face. And there's a lovely gentleman here by the name of Oscar, who's going to help us out by giving us a key out of here. So, you know, that was a pretty nice gesture of him. And, yeah, you'll take the key and escape. So, here we are, as you can pretty much see from the beginning. Obviously, this doesn't really look too improved textually from the original. So, it's kind of a shame. And, yeah. I mean, at the very least, though, I didn't really feel that they, like, sort of skimped out on the marketing for it. Like, they didn't try to make it look like it was gonna be, like, super improved, so, oh well, maybe next time. So, you'll progress through the asylum, and you have this nice little big arena here, where I'm sure nothing whatsoever will go bad. But it will. So, this is the Asylum Demon, and you can try and fight him here if you'd like, but it's going to be a little difficult, because you only have a broken sword hilt, and you have no way to heal. So, I thought I would give it a try, just to see, but, yeah, I died after barely making a dent. So, what you're really supposed to do here this first time is you're going to want to run away. try to fight this one. I do like that it's sort of a bit of a switch on the concept of the Vanguard from the tutorial in Demon Souls. They're pretty much the same style of boss, but at least in this one the game doesn't like try to get you to fight it and then kill you. Like the game is basically wanting you to run away. But after we've progressed through and Oscar has given us a key to move on, now we can actually go fight the Asylum Demon for realsies. So the first thing you want to do is try and get the plunging attack, because the plunging attack is the strongest attack and the best attack in the game. And if you stay on that ledge up there too long, he'll just sort of jump up and get you, so you gotta watch out for that. And yeah, this fight, it might be challenging if you've never played this game before. I've seen a lot of people just the second they get in, they start spamming the roll, hoping it'll work, and that's not exactly how it works. You have to be a little more methodical with it. But the best tip, which I've taken from the Democracy, he's the one who said it originally, and I say it in all my videos, is the golden rule of Souls bosses is stick to that booty, especially with the Asylum Demon. I mean, well, you know, he's pretty thick. Let's just get moving on. But if you just stick behind, it really limits his moveset, so it's a lot easier for you to get hits on. I find it goes for most Souls bosses that the further away you are from them, the more variety of attacks they'll use, and usually lots of like charge attacks or jump attacks that are harder to dodge versus the sort of swing attacks that they'll do if you're close up, because those have a smaller hit radius. But you'll progress through to the edge of the cliff here, and there's this lovely bird here, this lovely crow, who will take you away to the next area. And I guess the general idea with this is that you are now the chosen undead because you are able to escape the asylum and defeat the Asylum Demon, because he's basically like a test to find out who's truly worthy of becoming the next lord. Though I do think it's interesting that if this whole thing hadn't really been set up and planned, yet there were still all these tests in place to determine that. But, you know, who really knows all these things? I'm sure the other people do, but not me, because I just don't research these things exactly. But in any case, we will arrive here in Lordran, which, as we know, is different from Drangleic, because it's got the Dran part at the end instead of the beginning. And here, after the tree magically materializes, you can talk to that knight over there, and he'll basically say, hey, there's 2 bells, ring them, and something might happen. And that's the only direction you'll get. So, there's many different ways you can go at the beginning, but the best way is to go up into the Undead Burg. That's the unofficial starting area. Now, what I did, since I have played this game before, is I went and explored a bunch of areas that are technically you're not supposed to go to until later on. And I did this just so I could get some better weapons and stuff so that I could use earlier in the game. So that's why I already have the Grass Crest Shield and the Morning Star. Because, you know, I'm not a beginner anymore. Now, this boss fight here is the Taurus Demon. And you'll see what I did earlier there was I ran up and I killed those 2 archers, because they will continue to shoot you during the fight. And if you're not prepared, it can be pretty frustrating. And what's also nice is you can climb this ladder and, again, in the spirit of Donkey, do the plunging attack, because it's the best attack in the game. So, the Taurus Demon is... he's not difficult for veterans of this series, but he is difficult if you're new. And I remember the first time I I fought him, I had a tough time because I was really wanting to lock on to properly hit everything. And similar to the Cleric Beast in Bloodborne, your area of fighting is pretty small. You don't have a lot of maneuver room. And it just seems like he can hit you with any swing. But you just have to watch his swings and realize that if you're close, a lot of his attacks won't hit you as much as you think. There's not really much of a story to him, though. He's just a demon born from the fire that we'll talk about later. But this next bit here is the next boss that guards the bell you have to ring. And it is, of course, appropriately the bell gargoyles. So you'll have to progress up through this church. It can be definitely a bit of a challenge, and I feel that this fight is kind of like the gatekeeper fight between the rest of the game. This is really the first true more difficult challenge than the other challenges before. And that's because you'll fight this one gargoyle here, but at half health a second one will spawn in. So it really tests your ability to balance multiple bosses at once. And they're not pushovers either. They hit pretty hard, and they've got a nice variety of attacks. So the strategy I find is you'll want to try to cut off the tail of this first gargoyle, because he likes to do a lot of tail swipes, and obviously those can be hard to dodge when he has like a full 360 range of a hitbox with it. But if you cut off the tail, you get to actually use it as a weapon, and then his moveset will be limited, so it's pretty helpful. That is a feature that is in Dark Souls 1 that I don't think, to my knowledge, is in the other Souls games, and that's bosses with tails you can cut off, and then you get a weapon. So that's a nice little feature, and obviously it sort of helps out with the idea that you should try to aim for the tail. It's a good strategy to do. So, even though I've played this game many times, the gargoyles are still a bit of a challenge, and really it just depends on how lucky you get with their attack patterns. That is, if you can get them to both do attacks at the same time, that obviously leaves them open for getting hits in. And what I like to do with this fight is try to really focus on going for the first gargoyle, because since he has a tail, he usually attacks with more melee, whereas the other one I find seems to focus more on using the fire breath attack. And that's the main thing, is to try to like run by them and bait attacks that you can get hits in. I got really lucky where they both did the flamethrower attack, so they were both sort of locked into doing that maneuver. If you do need help, you are able to summon the greatest bro of all time, Slayer, and I'd recommend doing that if you're new. There's no shame in using summons. I did it a lot in my first playthrough of Dark Souls 1 and 2, and as I felt that I got more comfortable with the game, I started reducing the number of it so I could feel a little more satisfied with my accomplishments, but that is entirely up to you. So, with that, we will have rung the first bell of awakening, and then from here we have to descend all the way down to the very bottom of Blight Town. There are multiple ways to get there, but one way that most people do is through the depths, and to do that we have to defeat the Capra Demon and 2 random dogs. So, I'm not the biggest fan of this fight, and the main reason is just kind of the way it's designed. The first attempt I did on this fight, I walked in, got immediately wrecked by both dogs and the Capra Demon, and bled to death. And yeah, it was just really frustrating. And it's just because, as you see, this arena that you have, it's just such a small space to maneuver in that if you sort of get like ganked right at the beginning, you don't really have anywhere else to run to. So it's kind of annoying in that regard. But the main thing is, after you get the 2 dogs, then the rest of the fight shouldn't be too bad, because the Capra Demon has a very limited move set. If you're playing with a shield, then you just need to block his attack and attack after you've blocked it. Obviously, if you're going for the more two-handed dodging, which is sort of the strat that I've preferred these days, it's a little bit more tougher. So that's the main difficulty from this fight, is the small arena and the 2 dogs that will gank you right at the beginning. There isn't too much of a story for the Capra Demon. He's just another one sort of born from the Witch of Islith's attempt to create and replicate the first flame. But I'll try to talk more about that when we get to the bosses of the Lost Islith. Defeating the Capra Demon gets you the key to the depths, and going through the depths will get you to Blighttown. And of course, if we want to get through the depths, we're going to have to beat the boss of the area, which is the Gaping Dragon. And this isn't my favorite fight in the game. It's kind of a middle-of-the-pack one, but I will say I do love the design of this boss. You know, first you see a little head peer over, and you're like, oh, it's a little lizard, or it's a little dragon, or something like that. And then he comes forward, and you're like, okay, he's like an open heart surgery type dragon, or something like that. It's a little more complicated than that. And there isn't too much lore to this dragon, but from my understanding, the general idea is that he's a dragon that, like, ate so much and had such an appetite that his stomach just grew a mouth or something like that. And I think that's just pretty cool, like these really unique and interesting designs to creatures and just monstrosities like that. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. This fight is an okay one. Like any other tail boss, the main thing is you want to cut the tail. I find it just can be annoying, and he has a habit of doing his jump. And when he jumps, he reorients himself so that he's facing you. So then you gotta run around again to try and get to the tail. But you will want to get the tail because he'll do a tail swipe attack pretty frequently, and it does a pretty decent amount of damage. So you'll want to watch out for that. This is actually the first time as well that I fought him solo, because almost every time before this, in other playthroughs, I'd either used NPC summons or other co-opers or sunbros, and this fight is definitely a lot easier if you have help. And that's because you just get someone to distract him in the front, and he won't constantly jump around like this, causing you to lose positioning on the tail. But if you do cut off the tail, you get a pretty sweet axe from it. I think it does require like 45 strength or something like that to wield, but if you're going for a super heavy-duty strength build, then that would be a good option. One thing that is good is if he uses that sort of slam-down attack, because then his head is vulnerable and it takes more damage. The only thing you have to watch out for is the charge that he usually follows up with, because I remember in other playthroughs I would get one shot by that charge, and the first time it happened I thought, like, you know, is it supposed to be one shot? And no, it's just that powerful. But the other attack you have to watch out for, can't remember if he used it in this fight or not, is he sort of spits out like a giant spew of sludge or poison on the ground, and it causes very, very high weapon degradation. So that'll probably break most of your equipment, and obviously that's very bad because then you it's different in this game than the other ones because your equipment doesn't automatically repair when you rest a bonfire. You have to manually do it. And so there were times where I just like went through like 3 hours of gameplay and completely forgot to actually repair my stuff. So that was pretty bad. But oh well. I think the other thing that was making this fight last a while for me is I'm using the Uchi Katana, which is a katana weapon you get from the Undead merchant in the Undead perk. And yeah, I got this because I like katanas. They go good with dexterity, and they're pretty simple to use. They're good to two-hand, and it was the weapon I mainly used in Dark Souls 3, so it was nice to keep a similar strategy. Especially because the first time that I played Dark Souls 1, I was very much a tank, shield, turtle build. I was like, okay, put everything into strength, and shields, and have armor, and everything. That right there you'll see is the sludge attack. It has a pretty wide range. But yeah, I'm using this katana, and I don't know what it was in this playthrough, but I just felt that, like, for the longest time I didn't get any Titanite shards or upgrade materials or anything like that. So it meant I was going around for a good chunk of the game with just a +1 katana, which already doesn't do too much damage to armored enemies because, you know, it's a katana, not like a, you know, a big club or anything like that. And yeah, definitely drew out the fights a little longer, but I guess it's good for the video because it gives me more time to ramble about things, and that's why we're here, right? But in any case, that is the Gaping Dragon down, and it will unlock the next area, which is the ever popular Blight Town. And yeah, we progressed through Blight Town, best area of all time, and this gets us to the Chaos Witch Quelaag, who is this incredibly ugly, hideous monstrosity, this weird spider-type fire monster who actually happens to have a, well, like, you know, a very, very attractive woman for a top half. And, yeah, amazing chest head, am I right? Yes, Quelaag. Yeah, so, I mean, it's a Japanese game, right? That's just kind of the thing, right? There's always gotta be, like naked women somehow, right? But, yeah, this, Quelaag is one of the daughters of Chaos, of the Witch of Isolith. And basically the Witch of Isolith tried to recreate the first flame in an attempt to prevent the Age of Fire from ending. And in doing so, this fire was like some kind of like corrupting force that consumed and destroyed her. And basically from the fire a bunch of demons were spawned, including the Taurus Demon and the Capra Demon. That's why we encounter so many of them later on when we tried to get to the Lost Isolith. And this also mutated many of her children in different ways. So Quelaag now became with this giant half-spider monster, and we also see that her sister, who doesn't have a name, also was mutated in a similar way. So there's a lot of lore and story for these characters. It's really interesting, and it really exemplifies the sort of brutal sadness and harsh reality to this series, because, you know, the first time you walk into this fight, I'm sure you're thinking, okay, well, hey, I want to ring this bell, and there's this monster thing in the way. with a very attractive top half. And she's trying to kill me, so that means I have to kill her, right? And then you do that. And then you find later on Quelaag's sister, who is helplessly sick because she poisoned herself in an attempt to suck the poison out of the residents of Blighttown. And, you know, obviously in doing so, she herself is sick, so Quelaag has basically been killing anyone that comes near to take the humanity from them so that she can use humanity to heal the fair lady. Also, another character who's trying to help her out is the Dark Wraith Kirk, Knight of Thorns. He's actually a sort of good guy in that he is invading and pillaging people for humanity, but he's doing it to heal the fair lady. And there's a covenant you can enter where you do this, where you basically acquire humanity by any means you'd like and use it to heal her so that she can be made whole again. And yeah, then of course you realize that you're kind of a bit of a heartless bastard for coming in here and killing the one person keeping the sister alive. And if you want a really sad bit, pick the old witch ring as your starting gift, and then go talk to the sister with it on. You can actually hear how sick and sad she is. So yeah, imminent tears ahead. But that's the basic story of Quelaag. In terms of the fight itself, this was one that was really tough for me in my first playthrough, and I couldn't really figure out how to sort of get her down in terms of fighting. But I think it's one that my experience with the series has helped me out with. This is a boss that exemplifies how useful strafing is. If you stick to her side, she only does like one of two sword swipes, and if she does the one where all she does is stab forward, then you don't even need to dodge it, you'll already be out of the way. And usually she has one that is 3 slashes or so, and if you just dodge these, and you don't roll too early like I sometimes do, then you have a chance for a few strikes. The main thing you have to watch out for is not getting cornered by the lava that the spider spits out. If you lose track of where all the lava in the arena is, you might find yourself accidentally rolling into it, and that will kill you pretty fast. The other thing to watch out for is the AoE attack that the spider does, because it can sort of come with very little build-up and just sort of happen. But the one thing that the remaster has improved that's pretty noticeable is that the AoEs for any AoE attack, they're a lot more noticeable now. It was one thing I didn't like about this fight, was I felt that you couldn't really see the full extent of the blast, and so then that meant that I'd be trying to dodge and I wouldn't dodge far enough, and would end up usually getting one shot by the powerful AoE. But in any case, that is the Quelaag fight down, and now we could go ring the second bell of awakening, which is right over here. Doing this will then allow you to get the next section of the game, which is Sen's Fortress, otherwise known by the more colloquial term Sen's Funhouse. It is a deadly, trap-filled fortress that will probably cause a lot of thrown controllers, even if it's not your first time playing through, because this area can be kind of brutal. Oh well. But in any case, we must progress through because we have to kill all the bosses. It's what we were born to do. If you keep going further down, you can fight the Ceaseless Discharge now, but I wouldn't advise it unless you're going to use the cheese strategy of killing him. So back in the Firelink Shrine, there'll be this lovely Steve Buscemi character, who is Kingseeker Framped. He's one of the primordial serpents, and he's going to give you your next objective, which is to get through Sen's Fortress to get the Lord Vessel from the big city Anor Londo. Yeah, but before we do that, there's a few optional bosses you can go fight. So this one here, this is the Moonlight Butterfly, which is a really, really fun fight because you get to sit around dodging spells until he lands to recharge his mana. Yeah, I'm the biggest fan of this fight, but I wouldn't say I hate it as much as some of the other community does. I do like the sort of ephemeral type of beauty to this creature, and the score for it's very good too. It's just not a very fun fight if you're mainly a melee character, because you basically just dodge these spells and wait for it to land. It feeds on the grass on the bridge, and that recharges its spells. It's also very weak, so you should be able to kill it once it lands. And I was dodging around, and then I remembered, oh yeah, I might be able to use pyromancy on it. And I didn't think it would work, but you'll see that I still managed to hit it, and then it landed right that moment. So I just killed it right away. Yeah, that's it. GG, too easy. The only really lore to the Moonlight Butterfly is that it's an experiment of Seath the Scaleless, who we will talk more about when we get to him. So the other optional boss you can fight is if you go back to the Undead Asylum, and there'll be a few more enemies you can fight, and some Black Knights will be there as well. And if you go back through here, the floor will break, and now you can fight the Stray Demon, who is pretty much the Asylum Demon, but he has a few extra attacks. One of which being that really annoying AoE, because it doesn't actually happen where he hits his hammer. It sort of appears where you were standing when he hit the hammer. But the nice thing is that with the remaster, I can actually tell where the AoE is. I remember that this boss, it wasn't the toughest fight for me, but was probably one of the most annoying, because since I really had no kind of concept of where the AoE was, I just felt that I would get constantly hit by it, and I was never able to dodge it properly. But now we're able to. Yay! Now the strat for the Stray Demon is pretty much the same as the Asylum Demon. Stick to that booty. The only tough part about this is that now when he does his ground pound attack, it has the AoE, so you do have to back off of him, whereas you didn't have to for the Asylum Demon. And the other annoying thing is, since you have that drop when you come in, you can lose a lot of health from it. I've had times where he kills me right at the beginning because I drop in, lose the health from the fall damage, and then I get one shot by him. But as long as you follow the golden rule, it shouldn't be too tough of a fight. And you get a Titanite slab out of it, so you can upgrade your weapon to the highest level. Now, for this next fight, I wanted to fight each boss for this, but you know me, I also like to enjoy a couple of the memes from now and then. So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna see if I can get Iron Tarkus to kill the next boss all by himself. The next boss being the boss at the top of Sen's Fortress, which is the Iron Golem, because I've seen videos where it is possible, and I thought I'd give it a try. So, if you do feel like this is doing a little too much cheese, I did also fight the Iron Golem by myself. So, you know, maybe I'll just put that up there in the top. There you go, you can watch that if you really want. But, yeah, I just decided I'd let Tarkus fight him. I've fought enough boss in this series I think I can afford just to, you know, relax and stretch my legs a little bit. So, there's not much lore to the Arid Golem. It's kind of just like meant to be another test for the chosen undead, and for those trying to conquer Sen's Fortress. There's the crestfallen merchant. He tried to get through, but he wasn't able to, and so now he just sells a bunch of wares in a pretty precarious area. And I think in his own timeline, Iron Tarkus did make it through, but then he got killed by the Painted Guardians because he wasn't able to get through the rafters, as so many of us weren't also. And now he's here though, because time is distorted in Lordran, so your ghost can appear for you to help fight bosses. And so I was kind of worried because Iron Tarkus seemed like he was getting his butt kicked, and at one part you'll see he kind of just sort of stood there. I thought he was glitched out or something like that, and I was like, no, come on, we must embrace the memes. We must see if Tarkus can do it himself. And then he staggered in the air, and he did it. Yay! See, you don't need Iron Tarkus, like, to help you fight. All you need is Iron Tarkus, because he's the best. But again, you can see up there's my footage that I beat him fair and square by myself. Although it was with sorcery, so I don't know if that's the cheese way or not, but it's my video, it's my ASMR boss thing, and I will do what I want, and I will embrace the memes. So, once you've done that, these lovely bad demon creature things will carry you up to one of the best and most difficult areas in the game, the moment you've all been waiting for, and that is Anor Londo. This is like, I guess, the sort of upper class kingdom of the land of Lordran, where all the awesome characters hung out and had good times, but you didn't get to see that, and now they've all screwed off, or they've died, or gone insane, or worse, and we're gonna put them all out of their misery. So, Anor Londo, have fun getting invaded. And of course, with Anor Londo comes the dynamic duo, the holy pair of terribleness. And that is, of course, Dragon Slayer Ornstein and Executioner Smough. And I don't know if I'm saying those names wrong or not, but too bad. So, yeah, you thought some of the other bosses were tough. This right here, this is the ultimate super gatekeeper of the game. Because it's not like you gotta fight two easy bosses at once with the Gargoyles. It's no, you've got two completely different bosses fighting at the same time. And yeah, this is a tough fight, alright. In my first playthroughs, I refused to do this fight solo. I only did it with summons. So this is actually my first time fighting them by myself. But obviously I do sort of have the past experience of Soul games to help me out, so don't get too discouraged by that. And this is probably one of the best fights in this series, and it's because I don't think that From Software managed to ever capture this sort of lightning in a bottle type of sensation again. And the basic concept is that while this fight is difficult, it is also perfectly balanced, because Ornstein, he is very fast, very mobile, and very quick to strike, whereas Smough, he's a lot larger, slower, more cumbersome. So there is ways to properly balance out the two and separate them. And that's really the trick. You have to take your time with this fight and wait for the precise moment to get in strikes. And if you're too greedy, you're gonna get wrecked by the dynamic duo of Pikachu and Snorlax. So, my strat is I like to kill Ornstein first, because I find it's easier to lure him away from Smough. Alternatively, you could lure Ornstein away and then go in for attacks on Smough. And it does matter which one you kill first, because whichever one you kill first, the other one will then absorb that one's power and become twice as strong. And also, you'll only get a soul from the last one you kill. So if you want Ornstein's soul, you have to kill Smough first, and vice versa. It also determines what armor set you get from them. Now, usually I don't really use either of their souls or armor sets, so it doesn't matter for me. You can pick and choose on that. And yeah, you'll see here that Smough, he greedily finishes off Ornstein and absorbs his power. And in the second stage, you really have to watch out, because they use a lot of AoE attacks with really heavy lightning damage, and those can be pretty powerful, really mess you up. And of course, the one time I tried to use Pyromancy is the time that he just jumps on me at the exact minute. And that hammer run attack, I just feel like I can never dodge it. I always get hit even if I'm to the side. And the basic lore for Ornstein and Smough is that Ornstein was one of the 4 Knights of Gwyn, which also included Artorias, Siren, and Hawkeye Go. Of course, we don't really meet any of those other ones until we get to the DLC. And Smough, he's an executioner, and was kind of a little too crazy on the brute force, which is why he wasn't really like a proper knight of Gwyn. And so, Gwyn, he's off doing his own thing right now, and now what these guys are doing is guarding the Lord Vessel and Gwynevere, the holy pair, which we'll get to in a minute. Don't worry, she's in the video. But yeah, this is a very tough fight, and will probably take you many tries, especially if it's your first time playing the game. But again, the main trick is separate the two of them when they're together and focus on attacking and killing one. And then when you get down to the second one, it's not that much simpler since he is more powerful, but at least you only have to worry about one boss at a time. And yeah, it's definitely a fight that FromSoft realized was so popular, and so why they tried to find ways to emulate this gank fight in many other games. But this was probably the best one in terms of this type of fight. So it's pretty good. So here we go, the real moment you've all been waiting for. The holy pair herself, Gwynevere. Oh boy, Japanese games, I know, right? First Quelaag and now this. But yeah, Gwynevere is important because you talk to her and she gives you the Lord Vessel. You'll need that to access the kiln of the First Flame, where Gwyn is, and it also allows you to warp between bonfires, which is pretty good, because you didn't have a fast travel system until then. And I think that's one feature that makes this game tougher than the others. In any other game, it's if you want to go somewhere, you've got a bonfire, you can warp from bonfire to bonfire, and you can get there pretty easy. But in this game, if before this point in the game you wanted to get anywhere, you had to walk, and you had to fight all the enemies in between, because they always respawn. But in any case, we have the Lord Vessel, and now we need to get the souls to place in the Lord Vessel to open the kiln. One of the souls we need to get is the bequeathed Lord Shard of the Four Kings. they reside in the Abyss. And we can link it to the Abyss with the Covenant of Artorias, the ring that Knight Artorias used to traverse the Abyss. Problem is that there's a bit of a guard dog guarding it. And yes, this is the imminent tears again part. This is a Sif, the Great Grey Wolf. So Sif was Artorias' dog, his companion, and Artorias is long gone, but Sif still guards his grave, because he only wants those who are worthy to have the Covenant of Artorias, because he saw how the dark corrupted Artorias, and he doesn't want that to happen again. Also, if you are to go to the DLC, fight Artorias, save Sif from the Abyss, and then come back and actually fight him, there's an extra cutscene where Sif recognizes you, and it's even more sad than this fight is already. Because, yeah, the game basically wants you to be the one that kills the dog. It's pretty brutal. And also, this fight isn't even too tough as well, making it even easier, but yet more emotional. Sif is a boss where you just want to stay underneath her, and then you pretty much have free reign to attack at the legs, and when she flips away, you just roll back under and get in there. It can be a bit of a tougher fight if you're more of a tank build, but for my build, this suits the fight perfectly. And yeah, the ultimate sadness as well is that when you get Sif down to low health, she starts like pathetically limping towards you and still trying to fight. And yeah, I thought I would just leave him a bit of footage this so you can see what it is, but yeah, we don't want this to go on for too long, because this is a little too emotional. But don't worry, it's all gonna be okay. You're good. And yeah, just don't look at it. Just don't look at it too long. It'll be fine. But yeah, that's Sif. Really great fight. Really sad fight, but really great story. Prepare to cry. And with the Covenant of Artorias, we are now able to descend to the bottom of the New Londo ruins and into the Abyss. And this is the Four Kings fight, which is probably one of the toughest fights in the game for me. And that's because, first of all, you have to sacrifice one of your ring slots so you can put on the Artorias ring. And in Dark Souls 1, you only get 2 ring spots. And for most people, that second ring spot will be the Ring of Favor and Protection to have increased health, stamina, and carrying capacity. The other annoying thing about the Four Kings is you'll see that attack he just used there is one that drains some humanity, and I just used a bunch of humanity because the weapon I'm using, Quelaag's Fury Sword, scales with humanity, and I don't know why or how, but for some reason his humanity attack, it drained 9 humanity from me in one hit, so now I'm a lot weaker than what I thought I was going to be, and I also didn't even realize that until after the fight. So, the Four Kings were the rulers of New Londo who were corrupted by the Abyss after Gwyn had bequeathed a Lord Shard to them to be some of the new rulers. That's why we need the Covenant of the Abyss to go in so we can fight them. And the tough part about this fight is it starts off that there's only one king, but if you don't kill one of them fast enough, another one will spawn, and another one, and there might be a limit of 4. I'm not sure, but I've never really stuck long enough to find out, because one of them can be annoying as it is, let alone 2 of them attacking at different times, especially in an area where you don't really have much of a sense of distance since everything's all black. So, if you're not able to output a high level of damage in a short time, you're gonna have a bad time. That's basically the way it is. And also some of their attacks I just find impossible to dodge. They have this one laser blast where it seems like the blast follows you forever. They have a grab attack that sucks your humanity away, and that one it seems like they can just home in on you even if you're far away. It's one of the fights that I feel I still haven't really gotten good at. Exactly. And that's because usually I don't go for the playthroughs with super high damage weapons. I like more of the quick strikes and the quick movements. But if you persevere and are able to output a decent damage and not take too long and get too distracted, you should only have to fight one king at once, and you should be able to overcome them. Hopefully. But after that, you'll get the Lord Soul Shard. Now, if you haven't talked to Fram, and you have not placed the Lord Vessel on the Firelink altar, then you'll see a new serpent who is Darkstalker Koth. And he's the one that will allow you to join the Dark Wraith Covenant so that you can get a full red-eye orb and invade other players an infinite amount of times. And usually I end up not talking to Koth because if you place the Lord Vessel before talking to him, he just doesn't show up. And since the Four Kings is a tough fight for me, I usually leave it until a lot later in the game. But here I decide, you know what, I want to have my own red-eye orb so I can fail at invading people. And I did that. But in any case, regardless of which serpent you talk to, they will do this weird swallow you tactic or something. And then bring you to the Firelink altar. From here you place the Lord Vessel, and then you have to find the Lord Souls to place in the Lord Vessel to open the passage to the kiln. And those are the Four Kings, Seath the Scaleless, Gravelord Nito, and the Bed of Chaos. And there's a different path for each one. That's why I do like how in this section of the game you get more of the branching pathways. It was something they did a lot more in Dark Souls 2, I found. Not so much in Dark Souls 3, though, unfortunately. And yeah, go kill more bosses. That's the mantra. That's what we've got to follow. And you need to also place the Lord Vessel, because if you don't, there's a bunch of magic energy around the path that you need to go. It's actually kind of annoying. I went all the way down there and completely forgot about it. And then I had to warp all the way back and walk all the way back. It was not necessarily fun times, but that's okay. Okay. So, from here what I'll do is I'll try to have it organized so that we have just one path at a time. And you can do these in any order you please. So, the first path is to get to the Bed of Chaos. To do that, we have to go back through Blighttown and down into the Demon Ruins. And this area is kind of meh, I'm not gonna lie. I think the one thing people were hoping for in the remaster was that if they would do it a little more in depth, and they were gonna like fix the area of the Lost Isleth and make it better. And I kind of knew they weren't gonna do that because it was a remaster, not a remake. But dreaming is free. So this here is the Ceaseless Discharge, winner of the grossest boss name award. He's a sad-looking guy, you know. He's on fire and stuff. It's kind of sad. But he doesn't even really fight you and stuff. So you just decide, hey, I'll leave you alone. I'll just go here. Do you mind if I take this item? I hope you don't mind. Oh, would you look at that? He does care. So, yeah, this is the fight, basically. The reason that he attacks you after you pillage that item is because this is actually meant to be one of the sons of the Witch of Islith. And from what I recall, he was basically born with like hot fire sores all over his body. And so one of the sisters who cared for him gave him a ring to ease the fire for him. And he was very careless and he dropped it into the lava. And then from the lava, it spawned the Centipede Demon, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, so this guy, all he really cared about was protecting his sister. And so you just went and you robbed the grave of the sister he cared about. So no wonder this guy's in a bad mood. But yeah, this fight is okay. I feel like he just does a ton of damage, so if you do get hit and you're not at full health, it can be a pretty close to a kill. And I'm not sure why, but I found that the first time you fight him, he really only likes to use this sort of ground pound slam attack with a long windup, which is decently easy to dodge as long as you don't take your time. And as long as you mainly avoid that attack, he'll leave his arm down for several seconds, and it gives you a lot more time to attack and get hits on him. Now, granted, since I'm using a katana that isn't upgraded that much, it is taking a little longer than usual, but if you've got a decently upgraded weapon, it shouldn't be too bad. There is a cheese you can do in this fight if you want. I didn't do it on my main playthrough here because I want to fight the bosses properly. But what you do is after you've picked up the items from the grave, you run back to the fog wall. He will try to hit you, and then he'll just be stuck there. And you hit his arm a few times, and then he just gets insta-dead. And I think that's because he, like, walks off the ledge or something like that. But in any case, that is the Ceaseless Discharge down, and killing him will make the lava in the next area lower, so that you can get to the next spot of the Demon Ruins. Yay! I'm also not a fan of the area because there's like just a bunch of Taurus Demons and Capra Demons just in a wide open area with nothing. It feels like a test server or something. Anyway, 5 minutes later, and we have another boss, the Demon Firesage, who, as you can see, has a really interesting and unique design that in no way resembles the Stray Demon or the Asylum Demon. Nope, he's completely different, because this one has fire, and yet he's also weak to fire, because pyromancy is actually doing some decent damage to him. So, that's a thing then, I guess. Anyway, I'm not a fan of this boss because it's a reskin of a reskin, and it feels very lazy. Like, I know that was the thing with this area of the game, is that it was rushed because they didn't have enough time to develop it the way they wanted, but they still wanted to have bosses in the game, so they just did a copy-paste of a copy-paste. And there isn't much to this Demon Firesage except he was the first of the demons, and also the least original. Yeah, pretty much everything I said about the Stray Demon and Asylum Demon applies to this one. Have fun with the reskin. And then 3 minutes later, we have another boss fight, because this area is just crammed full of fights. They just wanted as many bosses as possible for this part, and then they decided, hey, you know, we did this one part where we rushed this area, and all we did was put a bunch of enemies in it with no real thought to placement and a bunch of bosses every 5 minutes. What if we made an entire game like that and called it Dark Souls 2? not too tough of a fight if you know what you're doing, as with most. And the trick is, as you see, I've run over to this spot here so that I actually have a decent-sized arena to fight him. Because the first time I tried fighting him just on the original spot where you spawn in, with the fog wall and all that, and it's pretty tough because he just jumps around and you have like no room to maneuver. So the Centipede Demon, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, he is meant to be spawned from the orange charred ring, which the Ceaseless Discharge carelessly dropped and spawned this demon. And unfortunately, this demon is not weak to fire, so unfortunately, as you see, the weapon I'm using, it's not doing a lot of damage, so this is going to be a little bit of a longer fight, but that's okay, because the Centipede Demon is such an interesting fight. He has just so many lores and strategies to talk about, but not really. One thing you should try to do while fighting is definitely cut off the tail. See, if you beat the boss, you get the orange charred ring, because it's essential for getting through the lava in the next area. But if you can cut off the tail and get the charred ring, then if you do happen to die, then it lets you actually fight him with a lot more of an arena, because you're not limited to the tiny spots without lava. And this is one thing that's interesting that I didn't realize, but after you cut off the tail, it actually becomes an enemy of its own. This actually caught me by surprise. I was just expecting, you know, you cut off the tail of a monster and it dies, right? That's the way it works. But nope, it's actually its own enemy now. And also the tail will regrow on the centipede after a few minutes, so you're not entirely safe. But there you go, you'll see I got the orange charred ring. And the Centipede Demon, in terms of strategy, I'd say Circle Strafe is pretty effective on this one. And when he does the jump attack, just try to roll at the last second before he comes down. Usually he's not as good of a tracker with the jump attack as a boss like Lawrence or Ludwig. I meant to say Ludwig in Bloodborne. Like, that's a boss where you have to literally dodge at the last frame. This one, you got a little bit more of a window to do your thing. And you can summon Slayer if you'd like as well. That could be helpful. My main advice would be try to have a non-fire weapon if possible, because as you see, I'm doing like barely any damage, and it's really drawing out the fight. But I guess that's not so bad. I mean, there. See, if I can prove that I can beat a boss with a weapon he's not weak to, then that's a good sign, right? Nah, not really. I'm sure people are probably just thinking like, you scrub. Now you have to fight him at soul level 1 using fists only, or the broken ladle, or something like that. I kid. But, yeah, the other issue just with the Lost Island area is, as I was saying, it feels very rushed, very sort of pieced together from nothingness. Kind of like they had the design for the idea in mind, but since they couldn't finish it, they just sort of threw things in place and were like, well, let's hope this works. And I think the other disappointment is just what the area and the boss fights could have been, because there's a lot of lore with the Witch of Izalith. Having her tried to be so desperate to replicate the first flame, and have it creating and spawning all these demons, these monsters, thus, you know, destroying Lordran, and instead it's reduced to a very mediocre set of boss fights. Oh well. So, this is I don't know. It's hard for me to say what my least favorite boss in the series is, but we know that the community feels that way about this. This is the Bed of Chaos, what most people would claim is the worst boss in the entire series. And that's because this is not a fight, as it is a puzzle platformer in a game that's not built for puzzle platforming. So it's kind of like the opposite of that. It would be if like Halo or Call of Duty had a boss fight where instead of shooting the boss you have to like, I don't know, sit down and solve algebra, but using all of the shooting controls to solve algebra. Actually, that might be a good idea, now that I think about it. Anyway, oh yes, Bed of Chaos, Bed of Chaos, Bed of Chaos. So, what you need to do for the Bed of Chaos is, you see there's the glowing orbs on either side, which of course is video game language 101 for this stuff needs to be destroyed, bro. And the problem is that as you destroy these orbs, the Bed of Chaos starts getting more aggressive with the attacks. It starts using the branches to sweep you around, and it has a very quick recovery window for when it can do these attacks. And then the floor starts breaking here, and if you get swept in, that's an instant death from gravity. And that's why this boss fight is so hated, because the number of times that I've died just by getting lightly tapped into a hole and falling to my death is too many. And then to top it all off, this next part is the worst section, because it has these two like flame arms now fully extended as well. So now the boss will spam pyromancy chaos storms and try to sweep you into the holes, and there'll be even more possibilities of death than ever before so far. And also its attacks hit incredibly hard. I remember even with a tank build, it seemed like one branch hit could take like 3/4 of my health. So now what you need to do is find a window to execute a jump onto that middle branch there. But it's a little confusing because the branch curves in the area you want to jump to. So the number of times that I've jumped and just done a Hail Mary to my doom is also too high. And the fight's also tough now because you'll see that it just seems like it keeps consistently sweeping its arm without any sort of wind-up or hesitation. And so that doesn't give you a lot of time to jump, because if you jump and you get hit by the branch in midair, you're also going to fall into the pit. So somehow I managed to do this on my second try. After that, you can just roll through these branches, kill the bug at the center, and the boss dies in one hit. Yay! I think it's also not helped that there are no bonfires near this boss, so the run is incredibly long. Really, if you had to add a bonfire to the game, don't add one by Vamos. Add it to the Bed of Chaos. So, with one Lord Soul down, we now progress to the next Lord Soul through the catacombs. And this, quote, boss, who is the easiest boss in the entire series. We went from the most hated boss to the easiest boss. This is, of course, Pinwheel, who is not really a boss. He's a speed bump. And I'm sure that he has a really interesting backstory and a bunch of interesting things to say about him. And he does have the best looking mask in the game. But really, all of that doesn't matter. There may be a hidden story behind this boss, but I don't have time to tell it because the fight's going to be over in 3 seconds. Told you. Honestly, if he just had more health, it might be better. But in any case, from here he will get you the not Father's Mask, unfortunately. We do need Giant indeed. We'll get the mask later, don't worry. You can buy it or find it as a drop. And from here we go to the main Lord Soul boss, which is Gravelord Nito, also referred to as his DJ name, Gravelord Nito. So, this is another boss fight that starts with a jump that takes a lot of your health. I don't like when the fights do that. It's kind of lame. Just, you know, damage me right at the beginning. But then again, if I was a sorcery class, I could just always use Fall Control, and then that wouldn't really matter so much, but that's besides the point. So, also from Pinwheel, you get the right of kindling, which is sweet because you can kindle bonfires more than once. So you can get up to 20 Estus. And you'll definitely need it, because this boss has a long run, and if you get bad luck, he can be pretty tough. So, Gravelord Nito, he has a blade attack where he plunges it into the ground, and it pops up wherever you are. And that could be tough if you're at range, because you might not necessarily be able to see when you're supposed to dodge. And he also has a bunch of skeletons helping him out, and they will constantly respawn, unless you have a divine weapon, which I do not. So what I decided for this strat was to use Power Within, and just tank all the damage, basically. Because if you're using the base cannon, the upgraded +5 Chaos Viander, it does make the fight a lot easier. So, just stick close to him, and it shouldn't be too tough, as long as you don't go near the back of the arena. Near the back there are a lot more giant skeletons, and if you stay away from them, they won't attack you. And when Nito uses his AoE, he will kill all the skeletons for you temporarily, so you can use that to your advantage to get the next Lord Soul. So, the last Lord Soul we need to get is from Seath the Scaleless, who is up in the Duke's archives. But, unfortunately, the first time we try to fight him here, we're going to lose. There is only death ahead. And that's because, for one, you can't even get to attack him. And for two, Seath has eternal life due to the primordial crystal, I believe it's called. And we have to destroy the crystal first before we can actually fight him. So you can try if you want, but you'll probably die. I like to use a rare ring of sacrifice, so that even if I get cursed, I'll, still revive with all my humanity and souls. Because after you die, you're going to spawn in this cell here, and you won't be able to warp out because this bonfire is cut off from other ones. So what you'll have to do is kill that lizard guarding your cell, and then escape, and do some sweet prison break maneuvers. But once you manage to break out, you'll get the real chance to fight Seath. You have to make it through the crystal caves, which is a really tough spot because it's got precarious ledges and there's invisible pathways over bottomless chasms. So, yay, it's tough but fair, am I right, boys? So, this is Seath the Scaleless. He is a traitor, betrayed his own kind, sold out the dragons in exchange for immortality, just like all those police officers wanted to do for the Dandy Man to fight against Alucard in the Hellsinger Bridge series, am I right? And so, what I wanted to do for this first part here is wait for him to walk over, because when you destroy the crystal, it stuns him for a few seconds, and that's a good time to get some extra hits on him for obvious reasons. And I don't know why, but for some reason, he just decided to stay in his spot for several minutes. Gotta love that improved super boss AI, am I right? But yeah, so he's just gonna takes his sweet time getting over here. So yeah, Seath betrayed his own kind. He was an outcast because he was scaleless, therefore not immortal, like all the other dragons. And his whole thing is he wanted to research magic and sorcery and all that stuff. So while he may be, I don't know if he's blind or not, but basically the way he would read all the books is he would use magic to see through the eyes of the channelers, and they would read all the books for him so that he could learn all the knowledge. And he sort of pretty much gone insane from being cooped up in the archives, just reading all this crazy magic knowledge and stuff like that. And yeah, now we're gonna fight him. I do like killing Seath because of his story, but I don't really like the fight, and that's because I always try to go for the tail cut to get the Moonlight Greatsword, which is in every FromSoft game. That's just the way it is. But it just seems to me that he has a habit of constantly turning and not letting me get to the tail, and that really extends the fight for a while. And it's funny because I don't even end up getting the tail in this video, I think. That's because I found out you have to hit like the very tip of the tail. If you hit the midsection, that doesn't count. Oh well. I'm not really a sorcery build anyways here, so it doesn't really matter. But it does make the fight easier for him to not have a tail. That's because I find without warning he does this tail swipe attack. And it really damages you a lot. And you'll probably get hit by it because it just sort of comes in there without warning. And you don't have time to get away from it. And the rest of his attacks are not that difficult to dodge. Usually he'll just fire some form of a laser beam in front, and it leaves a bunch of crystals around, which will cause a curse buildup on you. But the curse buildup is very slow, so that shouldn't affect you too much. Main strat I find is go for the tail to see if you can get the sword. But again, as you'll see, he has almost Dark Souls 2 level of top spinning to get away from a potential backstab. Just like those turtle guys. Am I right? Yes, I am. Always am. Never wrong. Never. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of the fight. This is definitely one that I would recommend bringing summons for, because you can get one to distract him in the front while the others go for the tail hit if you really want the sword. Otherwise he just gets locked in this infinite pattern of circling around and just refuses to stay still so I can cut his tail off. Like, what exactly is with that? You think he'd be more open to a nice, fun, happy, innocent suggestion like that? But nope, I guess not. That's okay. Maybe another time. After this, there'll be a few other optional bosses we can get to, and the DLC, of course. Can't forget about that. Always the cream drop of difficulty in these games. But yeah, I just sort of gave up on trying to go for the tail hit. Whatever. Doesn't really matter. I can get it in another playthrough, right? So, with that, we will have all of the Lord Souls, and you'll be able to open the kiln of the first flame. Here I'm just showing you the cutscene for doing that because it's a pretty sweet area, if I do say so myself. So we offer the souls to the Lord Vessel, and that will open up the path. It's also a good area because there's a bunch of Black Knights in the area, and they infinitely respawn. So, if you want to farm and get the Black Knight weapons, and you didn't get them earlier in the game, this is the time to do it. And also, each one has a guaranteed to get some upgraded weapons, and you need materials. This is the area to farm them in. And yes, tears ahead indeed, because it's a pretty emotional ending to the game, especially with this really spooky hallway of ghosts. But like I say, we've got to do some cleanup first before we fully get to the ending. It's never really over until it's over. And here we go, Kiln of the First Flame. So, first optional boss that we still have to go through is Gwyndolin. Dark Moon, or Dark Sun Gwyndolin, one of those. He is a son of Gwyn, and he was born a boy, but raised as a girl. So, you know, he has a kind of a more feminine look. Because again, you know, Japanese game, that's the style, and that's okay. This boss fight is kind of meh. You basically have to run down the hall, and when you get to Gwyndolin, you attack him. But he spams a lot of these spells, and the large magic blast, it does go through your cover, so you can't hide behind it. So you basically have to constantly roll, hope you get lucky with the spells not hitting you. And when he pulls out the arrows, then it's a lot easier because those don't track you nearly as much. So you get a few hits in, and then he'll teleport back further. And that's pretty much it. The way they get to the fight is you have to get the Dark Moon Seance Ring from the catacombs, and then wear that in the Tomb of Gwyn so that he is revealed. You can join the Blade of the Dark Moon Covenant and invade the world of the guilty, or you can just be like me and say, forget all that Covenant stuff, let's just fight another boss, because that's what we do. And yeah, that's it. Not too difficult fight. I'd recommend going with a tank build so it's easier to run up and dodge all the spells. And then there's one more optional boss we need to get to, and that is in the Painted World, which we get to by examining this painting when you have the Peculiar Doll, which you either get as a starting gift or you get it from going back to your cell in your return to the Undead Asylum. Now, I do really think this is cool of you getting sucked into this alternate world, this sort of encapsulated reality, but you have to be prepared for it because you can't warp out of the Painted World. The bonfire is cut off from others, so you have to go through the entire area, and this is even if you've cleared it the first time, no matter what, you have to go through here. So at the end there is a boss, but if you want, you don't have to fight her. The choice is entirely up to you. And this is not a fatty. This is Crossbreed Priscilla. She's meant to be the daughter of Seath and Gwynevere. And yeah, that's an interesting thought. Alright, we'll just move along from that. But yeah, she's like a half-human, half-dragon or something like that. And no, I guess they thought she was a hideous monstrosity, so they locked her away in this painted world. But I don't know, she's kind of cute, and I know a lot of people think she's a waifu, so but in case after you attack her, she'll go invisible, but you can see where she is based on the footprints in the snow. So I decided I would just go full ham and use the Fire Tempest on her. And after that, she's not really that tough of a fight. She just has a few basic scythe attacks, and you just gotta watch over the bleed damage. But funny thing was, I started celebrating early here. I Priscilla down. Like I said, I don't necessarily want to fight her, but we have to for the video because we need to kill all the bosses, right? It's just kind of nice that they give you a choice as well. She's a pretty interesting character. You know, I do feel kind of bad because, like, I don't know, she's alright. Did we really have to go through all this trouble of, like, locking her away in this painted world and stuff like that? I don't know. Maybe it's like Fatih said, everyone realized that her tail was so fluffy and white and everyone wanted to pet it, and so they had to lock her away to stop all the undead from trying to do that. But yeah, take the plunge. You won't die. Instead, you'll be back in Anor Londo. And all the painting guardians are back, so whoops, let's save ourselves through the power of editing so that we get to the Artorias of the Abyss DLC. So DLC starts you right off the bat with the Sanctuary Guardian, and this guy is aggressive as hell. I feel like I get almost no window to heal or dodge in this fight. It is really ramping up the difficulty curve to let you know what you're in for, because of how fast and aggressive he is, and how many moves he has. The way you get to the DLC is, first you have to have killed the blue golem in the Duke's archives, and he drops a broken pendant. Then you have to make sure you've freed Dusk of Ulasil from the gold golem in the back of the Darkroot Basin, which only happens after you kill the Hydra that's there. And after you do that, there should be a portal. And when you go through, the Hand of Manus will grab you and suck you into this world, which is actually the past. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. I'm saying all this now because I don't have much to say about the Sanctuary Guardian, except you have to basically treat him like he's a Bloodborne boss. Dodge fast, move fast, and hopefully he uses that kind of attack that leaves him stunned for longer. And make sure you have moss clumps on you, because that tail of his will poison you in almost one hit like I did. And if you take your time, you're screwed. Good luck. But the real centerpiece of the DLC is, of course, the fight against Knight Artorias himself. I love this fight so much. So, Artorias was a knight of Gwyn, and he set out to Ulasil to help conquer the dark and stop the spread of the abyss. But in doing so, he eventually felled the dark and was corrupted by it. And so now here we have to put him out of his misery. Artorias is basically the man who lost his sanity just so he could save his dog. And hey, I can sympathize with that. I totally understand you, bro. That's a good thing to do. So, yeah, this is Artorias. He is incredibly aggressive. He's fast. He's erratic. He has many different moves. And if you're not careful, he can buff himself very early in the fight. And let me tell you, you do not want to fight super upgraded Artorias. So, I can't really give you an easy way to handle this fight, because of how many erratic moves he has. Again, I treat this as like a Dark Souls 3 or a Bloodborne fight. Fast, aggressive, and close is the way you want to play. It's actually interesting because I mentioned earlier I never played the DLC when I originally played Dark Souls 1. So most of these bosses, it's like my first time fighting against them, or at least my first time playing through this part. And I'd say that having played through Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3 before doing this definitely helped out a lot. If I went through here with my original, like, slow tank build and Devil Shield and all that, I probably wouldn't have done as well as I feel I did in these fights. So, that's my main advice, is fast and quick is the name of the game. And only heal directly after you've dodged a hit, because he follows them up pretty fast. is right here, where he goes to buff himself. What you don't want to do is stand back and wait for him. You want to stay close to him, so that when he does try and buff, you can attack him quickly and then knock him out of the buff. Because I found this out in my first fight against him, he can stack the buff. he buffed, and then he buffed a second time, and it just keeps on layering, so that's not a fun time. Not a fun time at all. But yeah, what makes this fight one of the best in the series is it's got a very in-depth story behind it, and it's perfectly represented in this fight. You get the feel for Artorias, how he is a very powerful knight. You can see how much the dark has corrupted him, and you do get a sense of sadness for this. After you kill him, his lover, Siran, will show up at his grave and ask for his soul, which you can give if you'd like. And later on in the Abyss, you can save Sif, who's been protected by Artorias' magic from the Humanity Hollows. Oh yeah, all around it's an incredibly fun fight, and I'm kind of sad that I beat him on my second try, because it's a fight I wanted to keep playing again and again. And it's, you know, the reason why these Dark Souls games are so great. It's for the moments like this where it all comes together perfectly. The next fight you can do in the DLC is Black Dragon Kalameet. And this is another really tough fight. Probably one of the toughest and best designed dragon fights in the game. So, I did not show it in this video, because I forgot to record it. But, when you come to this area for the first time, Kalameet will be flying around, and he'll probably kill you in 1 or 2 shots. So what you can do to make this easier is go talk to Hawkeye Go, who is hanging out in the area above Artorias. And after you've talked to him, and after you've had one failed attempt on Kalameet, he will pull off a sweet 360 no-scope shot and shoot down Kalameet. And, yeah, you should be able to see that he's been shot down. Means that he doesn't fly around as much, because he's been crippled by Hawkeye Go's arrow. And this will make the fight not easier, because it's still very tough, but it'll make it at least realistically doable. So, Kalameet is tough for obvious reasons. He is very fast, very aggressive. He has many different moves that are hard to learn, all of them. And he has a pretty big health pool. And when you only have 2 fire weapons as your main upgrade weapons, that makes it a little tough when you're fighting a fire monster. Not a great plan. But in any case, we have to slay the dragon. So, generally, you'll want to stay under or around him and attack the legs, which, of course, is easier said than done. A lot of times he will charge away or fly away to gain some ground with you. The one attack that he likes to spam is one where he will run away, do a 180, and then do a sort of circle of fire breath. And with that attack, you want to be good at timing it so that you can iframe through the fire. If you roll at the right time, you'll just simply dodge through it and not take any damage. Sometimes in the fight, I managed to pull this off, but I did not do it every time, and sometimes I was stuck healing as well when he did the fire attack. The other thing you really need to watch is he has a sort of crab attack which has a bit of a charge before it. I believe it's called the Calamity attack. And when he does this, he'll grab you and sort of like do some kind of like I-beam attack that basically makes it so you take double damage for a little bit. So, as evil as this boss is already, now he has a way to make it so you take double the damage from him. That's the attack right there that he's doing. And I know the fight's also tough if you're specifically trying to cut off his tail. I didn't bother with that since I wasn't going to use the weapon, but as you see, your chances to actually just even make a dent on his tail are incredibly limited. So, that's really all I can say for strategies in the fight is go for the legs and watch out for the charge attack and iframe through the fire so that you can be in closer. I will say this is also a fight where, having played the other games, it really benefited me. Specifically, fights like Sin the Slumbering Dragon and Dark Eater Meteor. Those are very tough dragon fights that help you sort of get the idea for the way the dragon fight's gonna go. But even with all that, Kalameet is still a very tough fight. In terms of lore, there's not much to him. He's an evil dragon that wants to conquer and pillage and stuff. And he's been doing that in Ulasil, causing terror. But then you get Hawkeye Go to shoot him down, so that he's stuck and limited to this valley here, because he can't fly. I mean, if you can beat him without getting Hawkeye Go's help, then more power to you. I, for one, am not nearly masochistic enough to try and do something like that. So, nope, I'm just gonna stick with my regular, normal difficulty strats. Thank you very much. I think that's about all I had to say for the fight. Don't get hit by the Calamity attack. Iframe through the fire. Try to go for the legs. Watch out for the sweep attacks. Get good at iframing through everything. Get Hawkeye Go to shoot him down. That's pretty much it. I think this was only my second attempt on him. I'm pretty impressed that I managed to do it because it's either I had a fire sword that swung fast or a fire sword that swung slowly. And yeah, this is perhaps a good tip why, if you're gonna have two different weapons, trying to have it so they're not of the same elemental attack, because that can really screw you on the bosses like this, as you are seeing. Probably could have killed him a lot faster with a regular weapon, but that's okay. Only other thing I have to say is there should be a lot of loot around in the area, so make sure you go get that chest. It's underneath the waterfall because it has a Titanite slab. And yeah, that should be it. Black Dragon Kalameet conquered. And that leaves only the hardest for last of the DLC. And that is, of course, Manus, the father of the Abyss. And what better way to fight him than with the legend himself? Yes, say hello to Giant Dad. I realized that I had all the right stats for it, and I had already built the base cannon, so as sort of a bit of a fun thing, I decided, why don't I try fighting Manus as Giant Dad? Because I had lost every other time with my other armor set, so I thought I'd give it a try. Turns out it actually worked, and that Giant Dad was actually a pretty good strat for this fight, so the more you know then, I guess. For those of you who don't know, Giant Dad is kind of a meme in Dark Souls, because of, what's his name, Only Afro. He's a YouTuber, and he did a video where he created this character build, where he used the Giant's armor set, the Father's Mask, a Chaos Viander, Crest Shield, Havel's Ring, Ring of Favor and Protection, and Black Flame, Pyromancy. 2 of them. That means New Game Plus. And yeah, he just wrecks everyone in PvP with it because you have poise and a very high damage weapon, but you're not too high of level. So it's just a pretty funny meme, and I decided I would embrace it because, again, I embrace the memes. That's what I do. But in any case, yes, this is Manus, Father of the Abyss, and he is a very tough fight. He's just incredibly aggressive, and he doesn't have as complex of a moveset as someone like Artorias, but he hits pretty hard, which is very challenging, especially when you have almost no recovery time. He also has this one attack. This is like a 5-hit combo or something, and I just never can dodge it. It just seems that he's able to hone in on you perfectly and get me with it every time. And he basically telegraphs it with this roar. He like swoops around in a 360, perfectly locks it and grabs you, and then hits you and slams you down 3 other times, and you cannot dodge out of it. It's very frustrating, but at least each individual hit doesn't do that much damage compared to his other strikes, so I guess it is kind of balanced in that way. But still, he has a habit of spamming that attack a lot. It's very frustrating. The other thing you'll want to do to make this fight easier is you want to find an item in Wolfseal Township called the Silver Pendant. This is a usable item like the Estus Flask that deflects dark energy like that. So there's times where he just seems to like spam you from literally every angle with dark magic. So you want to use the Silver Pendant to deflect all of it. That was one time where they weren't all gonna hit me, so I was safe there. I kinda got lucky that he didn't use it too many times in this fight, but I had had fights with him previously where he just seemed to use it every couple of seconds when he was in phase 2, and if you aren't able to pull the pendant out fast enough and activate it, because it does take a second or two to work, you're gonna get hit by like 20 dark spells. Like, if I hadn't done that in time, that probably would have been an instant death for me right there. So yeah, that does not make this fight easy at all. And I just narrowly managed to avoid death. That's the other thing, I was used to being able to fast roll, and you can't do that with Giant Dad unless you've got 66 endurance. But don't tell anyone you leveled up dexterity. Don't tell anyone, it's very important. It's an essential part of the build. So, general story for Manus is, I think the idea is not necessarily that he's like the embodiment of the Abyss, but that he was like the furtive pygmy, and he's the original one corrupted by the dark and spawning stuff from the dark. It's a little confusing to me. I think I have to brush up on my lore a little more in that case, somehow. But yeah, he's big, dark, evil, bad guy, and he's bad and stuff, and he won't stop hitting me with the Wombo combo, and it's very frustrating. But never fear, Giant Dad is here. So, I already mentioned the Silver Pendant as a strat. If you want, you can also summon Sif for this boss fight if you found and rescued her in a hidden section of the Chasm of the Abyss. You just have to follow this ghostly apparition of Alvina, the cat from the Forest Under Covenant. So, you do those things, that'll help you out. Definitely bring summons if you're having trouble. Stick close to him, but be prepared to have at least some armor so you can take that Wombo combo. Because again, I just never seemed like I could dodge it. Other than that, he delays a few hits, so try not to roll before the windup. I definitely have a habit of doing that a lot, and if you stick with it, you should be able to conquer the Father of the Abyss. Well, what is it? Are you casual? And yeah, that is the Artorias of the Abyss DLC conquered. You'll see Princess Dusk is here. She doesn't really have much to say here, at least. But if you go back and talk to her in Lord Dren, the regular version of it, then she'll have more to tell you about that then. So, of course, as soon as I was going to fight Gwyn, some guy tried to invade me. So, sorry, buddy. We'll fight some other time, I promise. Absolutely. Totally honorable about it. So, this is the final boss of Dark Souls, Gwyn, the Lord of Cinder, the one who linked the first flame and started the whole cycle of fire originally. Now, Gwyn is either a very tough fight or a very easy fight, depending on one factor. Are you able to parry? Well, I am decent at parrying, but the first time I fought Gwyn in my original playthrough, I had to parry him 3 times, and I killed him right away. So I decided, for this attempt here, I would not parry him, and not use a shield. I would go two-handed, full dodge, because I wanted to do this fight in the most legit way possible. Obviously, parrying is not a cheese, and, not cheating or anything like that. But I wanted to, give myself a little challenge in this fight. So, that's what we did for this one here. So, Gwyn is a fantastic fight. He is challenging in a just right amount of way. Not overbearing, but tough enough to be, the final boss of the game. And he is fast and aggressive. It definitely puts you on edge. And definitely really ups the pace from the slower fights earlier in the game. Again, if you can parry, this fight will be a piece of cake. But if you can't, you might have to get good at dodging and stuff. Especially because you'll see that I keep trying to heal, and he's just able to get in very fast before I even have an opportunity to. His charge attacks are pretty quick. So, Gwyn was the first one to link the first flame. This led to the prosperity of fire, but also led to the disparity of dark. So the fire has been fading. Everyone's been going hollow as they keep on reliving life over and over again. Gwyn himself is hollow now, and he pretty much just serves as this last final guardian and test of the fire. But yeah, after you conquer him, that's that, and you have a choice whether or not you can link the fire or leave and bring on the Age of Dark. Now for this ending, I chose the linking the fire ending. It's really hard to tell what's the good ending, because they both sort of end pretty quick without much thought to them. But that's okay, because it never really was about the destination, it was about the journey. And it definitely was a very fun journey, for sure. So you link the fire, become one with the flame, and it is restored anew to bring back the prosperity and the light. For the time being. And there you have it. That is Dark Souls Remastered. Or not really, but sort of. Again, it is kind of lazy in that way that nothing's really been changed and it is essentially just a port. But it gave me the opportunity to finally make this video that all 7 of you have requested, and that's pretty good. But we're not finished yet, because there's another ending we want to do. And of course, what better person to become the Lord of the Dark than the legend himself? So now, I'm gonna fight Gwyn as Giant Dad, and I'm gonna use parries this time to It's such a fun build. It's so memey, and I swear every second player I got invaded by in the game was playing as Giant Dad. What has only Afro done to this community? It's good times. I remember I had one time where a guy summoned me in, and the summoner was Black Iron Tarkus. Like, he had Black Iron Tarkus armor. And I was Giant Dad, and he summoned a second guy who was also Giant Dad. And so it was 2 Giant Dads and a Black Iron Tarkus, and we were ganking the invaders, and it was great. But yeah, as you can see, not only am I doing more damage because of my base cannon, but also parrying just makes the fight a lot easier, since so many of his attacks can be parried, and they have a pretty generous parry timing as well. And I wanted to finish him off with a parry, just because it's fun. And, you know, he says he's good at parrying, and then of course he goes to me, but every single parrying, stuff like that, but I swear I'm good at this game, trust me, I swear I'm good. But yeah, there you go. I beat Gwyn a second time with the parrying, so we got the best of both worlds, because that's just the things I do for you guys, because I care and stuff. That's about you, not the haters or anything like that. So, yeah, with Giant Dad, you could go and link the fire if you want, but nah, who wants to do that? We don't need hope. We don't want to do this. Nah. We want to be the Dark Lord, the ruler of the primordial serpents, and the conqueror of the light. Yes. So, yeah, if you walk out, you get this quick little cutscene. There's the other primordial serpents, and they praise the new Dark Lord. Again, it was an ending that was used again in Dark Souls 3, obviously, because that was the fan service game. It is interesting because you don't have to side with any serpent throughout the game to determine the ending. You can still pick whichever one you want at the end. And yeah, that is Dark Souls Remastered. Good times all around. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That will do it for the game. Thanks again for watching all of my videos, specifically the Dark Souls ones, of course. Hopefully you find it sort of relaxing. I can never tell if I actually have a relaxing voice or not. It's just sort of the way these things work out. Once again, shout out to the awesome YouTube channels that helped me out with their content. Shout out to PC Gamer for featuring my Dark Souls 3 video. I don't really know where I go from here now. Maybe Demon Souls. No, it's not on PS4. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and hope you guys have a good night, have a good time, and we'll figure out something to do for